and I am one of the pastors at the Village Church. The following podcast is a ministry of the Village Church. We hope that it inspires you, that it draws you closer to Jesus, and it opens your eyes to the possibilities of living in the kingdom. Enjoy, and God bless.
Okay. Gratitude. Let's pray. Father in heaven, thank you so much again for this space, for this moment in time. And I just ask that as we settle down and as we begin to ponder what you might be inviting us into when it comes to Thanksgiving as a lifestyle and as a way of being, that we would get some courage through your Spirit to really step into that. And so we ask that in your holy name, Jesus. Amen. All right, so what's interesting here is Mark's doing the kids. Sadly, and we should be praying, Pastor Rod, who helped plant this church, is in the hospital. And if you've been following the saga, you know he was going to have open heart surgery on Monday, and now that's changed and all that kind of stuff. So we need to be praying for him. But in maybe things that aren't all that great, I'm the only one up here, and I get to tell the story, and I get to tell the story how I understand it and how I remember it. So it's my opportunity. And so I'm going to tell you about the village, what I'm thankful for, and how we ended up here. And then we're going to open it up and have you guys just proclaim what you are grateful for. So to start, what's interesting in the world that we live in is that gratitude and thanksgiving is really scientifically studied. They have done a lot of studying on it. And what's interesting is that they found is that when you are being thankful and you write down the things that you are thankful and you try to feel thankful, it has no impact on you. Like, it's not a benefit. So writing down things that you're thankful are not actually that beneficial. It's good to know, and it's a good exercise to do, but it's not going to transform you. What we do know is that when I say to Jay, thank you for X, Y, and Z, in particular, cleaning out that over there with your son, they know scientifically that it changes me and it changes him, even if he's super uncomfortable about it. For the benefit, right? Just using you as an example there. This is the thing. Why all the texts that we heard read, what we heard was that we are to give thanksgiving to God. Something happens to our brains, and we are oriented in an appropriate space and transformed when we are part of a community of people who are thanking God. Because we're changing our narrative, both out in the world, but also internally, and it is benefiting not just us, God enjoys it, and it benefits the people around you. Here's an interesting study that people did at Stanford, is they stuck people in imaging machines and played stories of people who had been in traumatic events and had people intervene to save them, right? And they were talking about how thankful they were, and those people, their brains like lit up who were in the imaging machines, the people in the imaging machines listening to the story, there was a benefit to that. So God already knew this because that's the way he designed us. He invites Paul to tell us to do this. The whole reason we're supposed to get together, tell stories, sing songs, and give thanksgiving is it links us all to God, because I am moved to think about God differently as I listen to how he transformed your life and how you're thankful for that in the midst of your hardships and difficulties and joys, right? So as a community, this is just one of the moments where we're going to do that. So let me tell you the quick story about how everything happened. I was discipled by this guy named Mark Rhines. Some of you know this. Some of you know him. Anyway, he told me anywhere in the world or United States that you plant a church, you really don't need a building. But in Tucson, you do. And there's a couple reasons for that. It's because Tucson is extremely transient. It hardly has any church buildings. And the people who are here like anchoring themselves. The people who grew up here want to anchor themselves in something. They like to say, I go to church at that building there. They like anchoring themselves in a place. People want to be anchored somewhere. So I'm really thankful for that, because I think I would not have thought that having a building was that important. So when Susan and I started to think about planning a church, there was this kid that I always have in my mind as I think about who the Village is for. At the time, I was like 24 maybe, and he was 18. So there wasn't a big age difference. His name was Chris. He had his children's names tattooed to his arms, whom his girlfriend or ex-girlfriend had terminated. And he was so broken by it that he had them tattooed. And when he would tell me about it, he would just cry. I don't even know where Chris is anymore. I used to pray for him a lot. I hung out with him in coffee shops. But I wanted to have a church that would be a place for him. When I used to hang out with all of his friends, and they're all kind of edgy and all that stuff. And so I was like, yeah, and I'm kind of that way. I want to be on 4th Avenue. That's what we want to do. We want to have, we were coffee shop, church, da-da-da-da. So that's where we were headed. And guess what happened? We planted a church. We did art shows. We ended up on 4th Avenue. We had all those, people in chainmail and wearing football helmets at our service. And people are having their lives transformed and changed, and college students were coming. And that building that we were in around 2005 was called the Muse. It was the old YMCA. For those of you who are good old Tucsonans, you maybe learned to swim there. I did. I was there. They had an underground swimming pool. They blew it up. It's right behind the Dairy Queen. And put up condos. So they kicked us out. And before they blew it up, thankfully. They blew up some of our art, but they blew it up. Now, I put on our website 2 weeks before, we don't have a place to meet. We don't know what we're going to do. If you can help. And we got a call from the Lutheran church on the corner of Speedway and Campbell, our saviors, and they said, hey, we hear what's going on with you. We want you to be able to buy a building, which really hadn't entered our consciousness. So we will charge you just $100 a week and $25 to clean. You can have our big, huge fellowship space, and you can store your stuff in the closet. Most of us were there, call it the blue room, because it was baby blue. And so we met there, about 45, 50 of us, and started looking for a building on 4th Avenue, or anywhere we could afford a building. And we started having these things we called lunches with the pastors. And so Rod and I would say, we are going to be at this restaurant on this date. If you want to have lunch with us, come. And these became these informal conversations about what we would need in a building. And as a bunch of very poor people whose average income was $5, and I'm not joking for those of you who remember, I can go show you the financial statements. It wasn't a lot. We were let's figure out how to raise money, a bake sale, so we can raise $50 towards a building. We had lots of cool ideas, but we didn't quite know how to do it. And this theme started coming through in all of these meetings. A lot of us have young children. People we're reaching have young children. We cannot have young children running out into the street. They need a place to play, all this kind of stuff. So we started thinking, you know what? We need a traditional building. At about that time, out of the blue, Pastor Rod gets a call from a third party saying, we have a donor who wants to give your church, they've been following you for a while, they want to give you $300,000 to buy a building, but you need to raise $100,000. So we're like, all right, we're going to do this. We're going to raise. So here's what we did to raise the funds. all the people, and I'd done a lot of weddings, all the people, I was like, hey, guess what? You need to give us your wedding lists. We are sending support letters to all the people who came to your wedding. Right? So that's, right? That was the first part. Then we threw a big, how do we call it, a banquet up in Phoenix. And we actually raised $20,000. And through all this process, we managed to raise $75,000. And this is about 2008-ish, 2007, I think, actually. Yeah, 2007. While this is all going on, guys, this church here had about 8 to 10 people. And my dad decides to show up to this church, sit through the service, and go up to the person who's leading and say, here's my son's church. You need to give him this building. In classic John Seepin style. They said that's not happening. Right? That's not happening. We didn't want to be here. There are other options. And I don't even know if it was up for sale yet. But we ended up by the time we got to $70,000, we were all exhausted. We'd exhausted all the options. Like all the very few rich uncles we had already given money. And so we called the third party and said, hey, can you pass on that we can only raise $70,000? And what they said back was, that's fine, we just wanted you to have skin in the game. We were like, you could have told us that before. Because we were really stressing out about this. So we came back here and we negotiated with them because after praying a lot, we're like, this is the option. This serves everything we need, except it's not on 4th Avenue. It's not hip. It's none of those things. Right? Like, we're not going to be, that's not where God's calling us. We're in this neighborhood now. So we got them down to $425,000, and we bought the building. Now, this is 2009. We signed the papers, and we were going to be able to be in the building the week after the Super Bowl. But we really had no place to meet. The place that we were meeting was like they were remodeling the fellowship hall, and we had to be out. So we had this week between when we could be here and so we had no place to meet. So I went to our real estate agent, and I said, can we just get in the building just to have a service? And he acted all nervous about it, but he finally said, yes, you can do it. And so we all came here on the Sunday of the Super Bowl when the Pittsburgh Steelers played the Cardinals. We had never celebrated the Super Bowl. In fact, those people who enjoyed the Super Bowl just said beforehand over the years, I'm not coming to the evening service on the Super Bowl Sunday. Just face it, that's not what happened. So when we got into this building, it seemed like this really cool marker. So and hey, it was the Arizona Cardinals, and we had to watch them lose to the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? But what's happened since God has given us this is, and here's the thing, I'm super thankful for Pastor Jimmy. Pastor Jimmy was at another church. That church closed down. He raised 2/3 of his salary and came and worked here. And that whole remodeled side, anything that's been done here, was overseen by him, by Lori Moore. For those of you who know her, she's an intern. By the Cromers. Like, a lot of people just threw their time into this to make it what it was and what it is. I'm really, really thankful for that, because that kitchen is actually pretty cool. If you saw the old one, which was this tiny little square thing with a bunch of drop ceilings, and yeah, it was a mess. And that was a cry room right there. Yeah, we got wrapped. So for those of you who have crying babies, we're sorry. We killed the cry room for the kitchen. Yeah, so that's true. You put all of them in the, yeah. Oh, that's true. That's okay. So, I'm thankful for this space, because in this space, people have met each other, they've come to Christ, gotten married, walked through a lot of hard stuff. This has been a good place that this building has given us an opportunity to be part of. And I want to say thank you to all of you. Because one of the things, for some of you who've been with me for a long time, and a lot of you aren't here today, but a lot of you who have been with me for a long time have been willing to suffer me to get to the point that I'm at in being your shepherd and your pastor. And so I thank you for that, because there was a lot of suffering of me, right? Helping me grow in those things. And I'm really thankful for the way that you have done that. I also want to say, before we open this, that I am really thankful to my wife, because this was a journey that we took when we first got married. Like, this is what we wanted to do, and she's been on board always, and you know that she's an integral part to everything that happens here in ministry and in your lives. And so I want to say thank you to you. I could say a whole bunch more thank yous, and maybe it would be beneficial to you to hear them from me, but I'm only just going to start crying to say all those things. So know that I am very thankful to you for what you have done and walking alongside this ministry in this community. With that said, I want to give you some space to stand up, or if you don't have to stand up, but to say, hey, this is what I'm grateful for. And I would encourage you two things. You could say, yes, I'm grateful that this is what God has done in my life, but God usually doesn't do things in a vacuum. He does it with a person. And so if there's someone in here that you want to thank in the process of thanking God, I would encourage you to do that, because it will push them even closer to God along with you. So, with that said, I need a mic runner. There's a mic right there. And I got one here. But if you've got something you want to say, this is your opportunity.
All right, so I think about this going back to 2009, and when you say the church was meeting in the fellowship hall and we could use their closet space, like, if you weren't around then, I don't think you can comprehend that, like, the whole church was in the closet, like past belonging projects, artwork, lighting, musical instruments, the band, all speakers, yeah. So you have to come and what's that? The frames with the black curtains that you hung over it to get the right lighting effect, the candles, the things you put under the candles so you didn't get wax on the floor. Like, it was a job, and we'd have to set it up and take it down every week, and that closet would just end up just a big mess of church stuff that we would have to. That would be the work day. It's like, all right, we got to deal with the closet. Like, so it's pretty cool that now you can have a actual work day projects. And I also think back to 2009, and you were saying I'm amazed that we raised $70,000, because you're probably not kidding that our $5 was right. We were talking with Rod last night, and I said, like, my goal that year was to save $100.
Like, the wealthiest person at our church was a retired woman. I'm pretty sure, right? Ruth, I think, was, like, seriously, guys. I think I was second in line as a public school teacher.
And I was talking about this with Jeff McConnell. Like, we'd have to set up all those folding chairs, and we would have to decide, like, all right, is it better for me to try to carry 4 chairs at once, and try to navigate that awkwardness and get my fingers pinched, or should I just do 2 chairs? But then you see another guy doing 4, and you're like, oh, well, I got to do 4. So the building, we didn't have to do any of that anymore. No one has to pick up speakers or do chairs. So I always mention that in this service, because it's so amazing what it's become from where we started there. There's lots of people I'm thankful for. I came to this church because of my wife. We were dating, and she invited me here, and always have felt just welcome and people really wanting to get to know me, and that's never changed. Everyone here has that. They want to know who you are and what's going on with you. I not like anything I experienced at other churches. So, and my wife's pretty amazing, so I'm grateful for her. And yeah, I think that's it.
I feel like we probably haven't shared with everybody here, just hadn't got a chance to share a story how we ended up at the Village, but it kind of goes hand in hand, Eric, with some people are involved, but we look back on it and are really grateful and see it kind of as God's, providential, miraculous kind of leading. So we moved here from overseas, military in 2022, and kind of left our last home feeling pretty like church burnt out, and just kind of for a number of different reasons, and just kind of made the decision to land here in Tucson and just kind of take a few months off from church and just kind of do our own thing at home and just kind of rest and recover a little bit. And so a few months went by, and I think it was probably March, because we moved here in January, so it was about 2 months. So I think March timeframe, Ashley and I were, kind of like, all right, I think we're ready to start looking for some churches again, and start checking some things out. And so it was really that Sunday, it was a Saturday, kind of a Friday night where we were talking and kind of ready to start, looking at some churches and exploring here in Tucson. And then that following Saturday, as we were still, started just researching and just kind of trying to figure out kind of what was going on, we took our kids to Sabino Canyon and were hiking on a Saturday. I think it was a Saturday or Sunday morning, one of those two. And we, had a little spot where we stopped for, kind of some lunch at the picnic tables up by the dam in Sabino Canyon. And we happen to have another family that comes by and kind of is doing something around, in that area down at the water. And they come up to us and ask us to borrow, or asked if they could borrow a baby wipe. And so, because we had, this is before we even had Genevieve, so it was just Violet. She was just a few months old, like four months old or so. And, so we give them a baby wipe and just kind of strike up a conversation. It happens to be the Yakeley family who's out there. And so we, kind of hit it off, kids with similar ages. And, we just start talking and, share that we had just moved to Tucson a few months ago and, figure out, pretty shortly in the conversation that we both, shared the faith. And they mentioned the Village. And, we were like, funny you mentioned that. We just felt like the Lord, was really kind of leading us to jump back in and find a church. So, of course, they invited us to the Village. And that very next weekend, we come to the Village. And it was like game over. I mean, we just knew that this is where we needed to be. So yeah, we just looked back on that, and certainly thank you, Yakeley family, for the hospitality and just the friendship and the invitation to come be a part of the Village. And we just look back on that and just like it's amazing how God, was like, all right, it's time to start looking for churches. And that very weekend that we felt led to do that. He providentially arranges us to run into the Yakeleys, who then invite us to the Village. And seriously, I mean, I think we had been to one other church from some people at work that invited us, but I mean, we were just like, this is it. This is exactly where we need to be. And we found our church, and we started coming from there on out. So, we go way back to 2022 with the Village. But no, we're just really grateful to be a part of this community. It's been very transformative for us, and you guys have been so welcoming, as a lot of people here go back a long time for being Village members. And so for us that are recently new and not Tucsonans, we're really grateful to be here, and just thankful for the community and the friendship you guys have offered us. So.
I'm really grateful for the way you as a community show up and are present to things. And I think that has more impact than you realize. So the individual I feel led to call out is Mr. Elliott, who just, I think if you asked him, he'd probably say, I just show up to David's Pilgrim group and I just make random observations and then go home. And I am just amazed time and time again the way that the Spirit speaks through that and leads me to repentance really deeply, because you show up. And so, I think that's just one example of the way that, like, it costs a lot, right? Like, I mean, we could be doing a lot of stuff with our Sunday mornings or with whatever is going on, and it's worth the investment in community.
Yeah, just really appreciate hearing how you think, or just your gratitude, Dave. And I wanted to chain off of that, and that there's a lot of people, and so I'll try to remember as many as I can, of just when we started coming to the village about a year after that, in like spring of 2023. Just I remember one of those first times sitting down with you and your family, and just for you and Ashley to share your experience overseas and what it meant, like, as you'd been here for a year, was so good, and that just helped us, Margaret and I, a lot. Having had some similarities in our story, just I appreciate your openness and just, willingness to share highs and lows of life overseas and what it meant to be here at the village, because that helped us a lot, and just feeling welcomed here. And so many people then and since then have helped us feel welcomed. Probably the sort of funniest one, I just wanted to thank Guy and Betsy for just the impact you've had in your kids' life and how their lives have really impacted ours, both Margaret and I, for many years before we ever met you. Stephen, one of their sons, discipled me when I was in college, and I think about his impact in my life and realize how much of that came from both of you. And then coming here and being really welcomed by Mark and Lane. And I just thank you for your investment that's going on through many generations.
I'll just add on a few. I'm thankful for Andrea she's been meeting with me for, maybe 2 years now. And just how she listens to me and asks good questions and writes down my prayer requests and asks me about them like a month later, and then I can see how God's been answering prayers. That's been really encouraging. And I'm thankful for my pilgrim group. Colleen, I don't see her here, but I'm thankful for her and how she leads us, and just everyone in my group and their commitment to me and to each other.
And make sure
That's
you
what
get
we
your
love.
steps in.
We love babies.
I'm thankful just for Jesus and the culture of gratitude that comes with that. I've kind of walked with Jesus for a long time and not my whole life, so I know what it's like to not walk with Jesus. And I have a lot of people I grew up with and I'm very close to, and I love and appreciate, and yet they don't walk with Jesus. And so I can see the contrast of what it's like to not have what we have. And it's really sad. I pray for them, and I wish that they could have what we have, because it just makes walking the road of life less scary. And also when I think about what it's like to walk this life as long as I have, knowing Jesus, I'm very grateful for Eric, because back in the beginning, he sat down with me and had lunch with me like every week and got to listen to all sorts of crap that I had going on in my life. And he really lobbied hard for me to be a part of this community. And I am very grateful for that, because without that, I wouldn't have what I have now, being part of this community.
I'm thankful for my husband. He's amazing, wise, insightful, thoughtful. He loves me well, and I'm just super thankful for you, Tom. And I'm also thankful for this church. We came here in 2021. We had come here before, but decided it wasn't the time. But we came back in 2021, and we were going through a really hard time. And I'm just thankful for all of you who ministered to us. And I'm thankful for my pilgrim group, and just so thankful for Trizia. We've walked on Mondays and enjoyed fellowship with her, and I'm thankful for her leadership in the group and for each member. Thank you.
I'm Betsy, and I wanted to say thank you. In this past year, something that I really impacted my life was Makers Camp. I wanted to thank Jessica and all of the people that help at Makers Camp. My grandchildren have really loved it, and it's been a place of connection for all of them. And I even got Guy to come last year, so that was great. I hope he does it again, right? Everybody encourage him. Yeah, right. But anyway, that was a real highlight, I think, last year for our family.
I would just like to point out something I think all of us know that come to this church, that community is such a big deal here. And specifically, I'm really grateful to my pilgrim group, specifically Dave, and how he leads us. And also, I think it's really inspiring seeing a bunch of adults that I know and respect be so vulnerable, and also, really actually live out the life we're called to live and confess to each other about things, because I don't necessarily know that in my life I've seen adults be like that, and that's very inspirational. So Dave, thank you for leading the way you do, and I'm very grateful for the Pilgrim Group and the church, because we confess every week, and it's really important and helps me kind of realize how broken we are. So yeah.
So I wanted to say, first for Eric, I had a really good upbringing, and my parents built something very good in me. And then right as I became an adult, I started meeting with you for 15 years maybe? And basically just took all those good pieces and reassembled them in a new shape and made me into the man with the value system I have. And I'm really grateful. I don't want to think about what I would have fell into otherwise. But I don't know, Rod, if you're listening to the stream or not, but I'm really thankful for you. You have such an incredible heart for people and for the Lord. You've got that old wisdom and that gentleness, and you just love to care for people. And I'm really, really grateful for what you've done for all of us.
I just want to thank Eric, especially. I know when I first came here in 2023, I was coming from a time when I was not able to find a church, and the primary thing that really hung me up when I was during my master's degree was people just were not friendly, and they didn't make any effort to get to know me or invest in my life at all. And I think it was within 2 or 3 weeks of me coming here, I had an invitation to come to your house for dinner with a couple other people. And like, I think that was the first time in my life someone in a church context who wasn't like a friend of my family had invited me into their home. And it's just been something that everyone in this church does. And I think it's really transformational, and it's really changed my life.
Hello. I think growing up in this church, something that I really appreciate is the teaching of hospitality, of ways to be hospitable, and also just that we practice it a lot. And I think it's like definitely formed like one of my personal core values of wanting to be able to host people and invite them and feed them. And so yeah, I really appreciate that about the village.
So when I was in college, I went to a small Christian school in Illinois. And the definitive thing I knew at that time was that I never wanted to be a pastor's wife. That was like the death knell on a personality, as far as I could tell at that point in time. And I think I just had a lot of preconceived ideas about what that would mean. The idea that it would mean I just have to shelf my own personality and take on specific roles in a church. Would have to play piano, which I already did. Would have to have long hair, which I already did. And so there were I was 20, sorry. But it was something that God clearly led Eric and I into pretty fast. And so I'm just really grateful to you for allowing me to hold the space that God called me into in being a pastor's wife and then becoming a pastor and being myself. That you have given me just the space to be Sue in those places, to be Sue and just like so supportive in also the calling that God has given me. So I'm really grateful for you. I had to write notes because I wanted to keep my train of thought. So I am thankful a lot for having a family. I mean, I have, apart from my offspring, I have no family here. And you all became my family. And this is something that I am very keenly reminded of every year when we have our belonging, because I think, was it 2002 when we joined the village? So this doesn't necessarily have to do with this building. I guess you can't see me. But the village as a community is a wonderful place to land. And it's a place where I have found, like I said, family, community, encouragement, coming from a very lonely and very judging environment. This is something I had never experienced until I came here. And I mess up a lot,
And I keep finding forgiveness. And I'm really grateful for that. So thank you.
I was just really moved by that. My son suffered a traumatic brain injury, and you guys have all been very gracious and means a lot to me.
We just have like for a few more minutes, so go for it, Steve.
All right. I've been thinking about what I want to say thank you for, both to God and to all of you. And as I reflect, I mean, the Yakeley family, we've been here, Hannah and I, myself 18 years, Hannah 20 years plus now, at this church, in this community, a part of this family, spiritual family. And it's the place where we've found healing, I think, in a lot of ways. And out of that healing, we've offered that towards others. And I think when we came here, I'll speak for myself, not for Hannah, but, you know, my relationship with God was pretty fractious from my upbringing and different experiences. And the village was a safe place for me to land, to be, and to stop doing my relationship with God, but really be in relationship with one another and with God. And all the messiness of that. And will always be grateful both to Eric and Sue and the ways you guys have ministered to me and our family, but to all of you that have walked with our family alongside us through all the ups and downs, specifically in the last decade. That's held a lot of trauma, challenges, grief, loss, and it's just been amazing, and we're just forever grateful. So from the Yakeley family, thank you, and for me.
Got time for one more, and then we're gonna.
Hi, my name is Kelly, and I want to thank, Rose, if you would tell your mother, and Russ, Emily Lewis, 2004, 2005, Cornville, prayer retreat. She decided I was her friend. And she drew my heart closer to Jesus and just walked beside me for several years. And as a result, I invited my then husband, to come, and we really wanted to be a part of the village. Tricia, you as well. Andrea, you as well. Susan, you as well. Hannah is not here, right? Hannah Yakeley? No, please tell her, Steve, that I want to thank her too. These women who reached out to me really just were so engaging and offered such authenticity. And that was because the linchpin person, Eric, you mentioned at your mom's service, or more recently, I can't remember when, that you might not have been a pastor, or you thanked her for being a pastor. And so I want to honor the memory of my dear mentor, Patty, who we all grieve and miss. And I'm very thankful for you, John, for bringing me here. I was going to not be a member of of this church. I was going to join Redemption-Tucson. But God had other plans. And so I'm just thankful to be part of this community that has truly welcomed me with godly affection. Thanks.
All right, let's pray. Father, thank you for not abandoning us. Thank you for sending your Son and giving us your Spirit. Thank you for grieving alongside us as we grieve. inviting us into a redemptive suffering, a hopefulness, a kindness, and a gratitude. And so as we sing and as we take communion, I just ask that we would remember your goodness in all of it. And ask that in your name, Jesus. Amen.